Welcome now, Kip Eideberg, Senior Vice President at the Association of Equipment Manufacturers. Kip, great to have you back on, always is. Give us a perspective specifically from the point of view of U.S. manufacturers about this stimulus package that's been proposed.
Well, first of all, it's always good to be with you, David. Thank you. Well, there clearly is a need for additional federal aid to help not only equipment manufacturers, but American businesses and workers through this difficult time. And specifically from our industry's perspective, small and even some medium-sized equipment manufacturers and suppliers are still in need of additional financial support. And the $908 billion framework that you mentioned, David, would set aside $288 billion in aid for small businesses, including offering them a second round of loans to the Paycheck Protection Program. So that is obviously something that we are very supportive of. Beyond that, from our industry's perspective, we need to address testing and healthcare, liability protection against unwarranted lawsuits, support for child care and K-12 schools, unemployment and job training, and state and local assistance. And if Congress can agree and pass a relief package that addresses these areas, then equipment manufacturers and I think businesses across all sectors will have the support necessary to navigate this difficult period.
So, Kip, just explain to us a little bit the mechanics of how this works. Let's take the first one on your list. The first one also, by the way, on the list given by the bipartisan group, that is the $288 billion for small businesses. And that's important for manufacturing because there are a lot of manufacturers that are small businesses and we get the money, or because that creates a demand for the products for manufacturers?
Well, it's a little bit of both, but primarily it's because we still have a lot of small equipment manufacturers who are struggling to turn the lights on and put workers on the shop floor. Demand for equipment is still not where it needs to be. And you and I have talked about this, in particular, 700 cities that halted critical infrastructure projects because of lack of funding earlier this year. That has driven down demand for new equipment, which obviously has had a negative impact on equipment manufacturers. And those smaller member companies of ours, have had a particular hard time dealing with that lack of demand. It has just, dried up. And so they're struggling. And additional funding for them, an additional injection of funds into the Paycheck Protection Program would help them. And by the way, it would also help some of the smaller suppliers and dealers that are part of our industry.
And so it sounds like there's the direct aid, as it were, the $288 billion, but also this $160 billion that's been denominated under this proposal, at least the $908 billion proposal, $160 billion for state, local, and tribal governments. That could go into some of the infrastructure projects you're talking about?
Yeah, it absolutely can. It could certainly help plug some of the holes that have been left as a result of the funding drying up due to the economic downturn that came with the COVID-19 pandemic and that we're still navigating through. So while that isn't nearly enough to rebuild our nation's infrastructure, it is a start, and it would certainly help drive up demand, which provide immediate relief for many of our smaller members.
Give us a sense of the attitude of your members, small or large, about the vaccine, because we talk to various people, economists and others, who say essentially we're looking at something like an air pocket, where we're going to have a tough time over the next 2 or 3 months. Most people seem to agree with that, but there may actually be a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's defined light. It's vaccine, and it's coming sometime in the middle of next year. Is that the way your members see it right now?
It is, and we recently surveyed 100 or so CEOs and executives of small, medium, and large equipment manufacturing companies, and a majority of them said that a widely available vaccine will help get our industry back on track. And, it's not necessarily because, we needed to keep our, the 2.8 million men and women of our industry on the shop floor building equipment. We've been able to do that throughout this crisis, but it will certainly help address, I think, the greater societal concerns about opening up the economy. And that will obviously have then a positive trickle-down effect on our industry and others. So I think a vaccine is going to be absolutely essential here over the next 3 months, in order to get the economy going again.
Kip, let's take a big step, and I admit this is a big step. Let's get past, for the moment, this COVID-19, which we all are desperate to do. What are the longer-term issues for manufacturing in the United States that you would like to see the government help you with?
Well, I think it starts with infrastructure. We need long-term funding for our nation's infrastructure. That will help demand for equipment, but it will also help a lot of our manufacturers with their operations. Many of our members are located in rural parts of the country, and the infrastructure in those parts is not where it needs to be. We need reliable broadband, not only to operate some of the equipment that our members make, but also to make it. We need not just roads and bridges. We need locks and dams and waterways, ports and airports to get components into manufacturing facilities and then out to the rest of the country and the world. And speaking of that, what we also need is we need some certainty on the trade front. David. The past 4 years have been a bit of a roller coaster. 30% of all equipment made in this country is destined for export. And the only way that we're going to be able to make more equipment, create more jobs in America, is if we can access more markets. And so we need agreements with other countries to trade under. And we certainly need to stop the start-stop on tariffs and quotas, because that has obviously had a very negative impact on our member companies' ability to make equipment here in the U.S.
And just quickly here at the end, how does it make a difference between China on the one hand and the West on the other when it comes to trade? Because right now, it's early going, it looks like the president-elect is sort of saying, let's not take the tariffs off yet of China, let's take it a step at a time, but he's more inclined to take them off of Europe, for example.
Yeah, I think Europe would be a great first step. And really, we've been saying all along, David, that the only way that we can address and mitigate some of the unfair trade practices of the Chinese is if we work with our partners and allies, and that obviously includes the European Union. And so we should not be engaged in a endless and needless trade war with the European Union when we really need to all work together to address some of the longer-term systemic, inefficiencies and certainly inequalities in the trading relationship with the Chinese. So let's get that going, and then let's start addressing China long-term. That would be a huge help to our industry.
Okay, Kip, really great to have you with us. That's Kip Eideberg of the Association of Equipment Manufacturers.